Every time someone loses money in sports cards, they say, the hobby's rigged. I actually don't think it is for the most part. I actually think the people that have affected by this have made bad decisions, and I'm going to walk through many of these bad decisions so that you don't make them for yourself. A lot of the mistakes are either under education or chasing hype. So, an example could be buying a Luca card at 3 a.m. after a playoff game. Or a recent example for me, after I watched my boy Drake May run for that first down in the snow, I literally posted on Instagram, who wants to overcharge me for a sick Drake May rookie, knowing full well I was at the top. I obviously am a seasoned guy, and I'm not going to do that, but I was all pumped up from the game because I'm a Pats fan. But I bet you a lot of people did buy Drake May after that game, and he lost the Super Bowl. And it's kind of like, what's going to happen now? He may still be a good investment, whatever. But that type of thing happens. Or, there were like two amazing dunks in preseason for a player in the NBA, or, somebody just crushed the home run derby, or there's some random Olympic player. Like, you have to understand there's always going to be hype and there's always going to be commotion around players. You should never really buy into that. That's just like dopamine buying. It's a bad idea every time. I mean, honestly, if your buying strategy depends on highlights, you're not an investor. You're a fan with a PayPal account. I just say it. Now, the other thing is most people don't understand market depth. You got to break it down. Like, there's tiers to this thing. You got tier one, blue chip goats like Brady, Jordan, LeBron, Mahomes, Gretzky, Ruth, stuff like that. Tier two is like the star active players like Otani or Judge or something. And then tier three is like the hype. Dylan Harper, is he going to do well with Wemby? I have no idea. That's tier three. And then tier four is just modern based, junk just dressed up as investments, like numbered stuff on, like a player that you think could pop. That's like the lowest of the tier. And you have to understand, as you go down these tiers, the liquidity narrows fast. And I had people on, a couple of dealers on, and that video did really well. And they were talking about, it's all about liquidity when they're buying and selling. You've got to think of the exit. And so as you move down the tiers, the liquidity becomes very volatile and possibly not even available, especially if tier 3 and 4 collapse. You have to think of it that way. Bottom line here is a lot of people build a portfolio of volatility and they expect stability, and that's not going to happen unless you're up in the tiers. All right, another big one is ignoring supply. PSA didn't necessarily ruin your card. Like, did you look at the pop count before you submitted that card for grading? Did you look at the gem rate? And for those who are noobs that don't, what's the gem rate? What the heck is that? The gem rate is very simply what rate of this particular card gets a 10 versus gets something else. For some cards, like the Wemby Rookie Prism, there are more 10s than anything else. That is a very high gem rate. And so the 9s are essentially junk. Now, for a 1933 Gaudy Babe Ruth, the gem rate is going to be exceptionally low, if non-existent. And then you have cards in between. So you've got to look at that when you are making that decision to send to PSA or not and take that expected value gamble, because the population doesn't suddenly appear. It is available for us. We need to educate ourselves. And I think it's important. If you're a noob, you can just Google 1986 Fleer PSA pop count. Boom. It will be one of the top 2 or 3 searches. Do that for any set you're chasing. It gets a little hard with the modern parallels and things like that because you'll have 1,000 pages, but you could drill down and get specific. So I'd say most people never even check pop growth rates, and you need to check the growth rates of the pop as well, and literally like set up a ChatGPT to look and say, when there's a change on this page to the pop, have it alert you so you know if the pop is growing or not. In most cases, modern is growing. Vintage grows too, but in a very different way. All right, the other reason you could have failed is you treated it like gambling. Ripping wax is a negative expected value event. Of course it is. Otherwise, every pack and every box would be filled with amazing cards. And then if they did that, those cards wouldn't be worth anything. So just by design, there are cards you are chasing. And then there are base cards that, kids like because they like the player, they want to get them signed, or they want to collect rainbows or whatever. But at the end of the day, on average, if you are just ripping wax for a financial positive outcome, you're going to lose. You could get lucky, but it's a negative expected value event because it has to be, and that's that's the basis for the manufacturing. The other thing people do is they buy into breaks with worse odds than blackjack. You know, when you go to the casino, you're pretty aware of the published vig. You know what the rake is in the poker game. You know what the odds are in blackjack. You know what the house makes on a craps table or a hard eight or just all the different things. Roulette. You don't really know that with a repack or other things going on here. So I think that educating yourself about the odds of a break is extremely important, and especially with non-digital repacks. Whew, boy, the things I've heard on those, I've heard that 100% of the time they know what the card will be, and 80% of the margin goes right back to the guys. So that sucks. You're better off going and playing blackjack in that case. And so, this section, it's like you didn't really invest. You gambled with worse odds than Vegas, and then you blamed the casino when you lost. All right, now here's some psychological stuff here. The real reason you're angry. People are mad because they think this is easy money. They see influencers flex like slabs and they flex sales, but I'll tell you, as an influencer, they don't flex the bad stuff. The bad stuff is there. I have made very bad trades, bad deals, bad buys, whatever, but I don't really shout them from the rooftops. Sometimes I do share cautionary tales on here, but I'm not blasting that on Instagram. That's not getting, although a blooper reel would get a lot of views, it's not getting all the views. So you see these guys and you're like, how the hell are they doing it? It must be rigged. It must be a loaded box. What the hell? But you don't see like all the bad stuff. That was a mistake I made with Arena Club and Jeff Wilson last year. They pulled a 9.5 BGS 9.5 Jordan out of the slab pack. But then what I didn't see was the hundreds of stuff they failed with behind the scenes. And so you have this selective bias, which can confuse things. Now, that also can confuse things with market luck and skill as well. Like a rising market can make you look smart, but a failing market exposes almost everyone. Now, if you've watched me long enough, there are bad actors. Of course there are. Is every auction perfectly clean? Absolutely not. We know there's shill bidding. We know that exists. We know the comps aren't great because of the shill bidding. But this systemic stuff is not why the John Morant Prism base is down 70%. You know what I mean? So on the whole, people are losing for other reasons, and many of them are self-inflicted. And I'm hoping that this video can show you some of the self-inflicted wounds. So by the end of it, you're like, okay, there's tiers to things. There's liquidity. I need to think of the exit plan. Just basic lessons here that should help you not mess things up too badly. So don't blame the hobby every time. Yes, it's different than when we were kids. Yes, it's more expensive. Not everybody likes breaking. I don't like repacks personally. Instead of blaming the hobby, learn supply, learn liquidity, learn cycles. And don't get angry, get smart. And that will make all the difference, and you'll actually do really well. Or the other way you can take this is, just treat it like an actual hobby, and that doesn't matter because you're just collecting stuff and the financial outcome is secondary or even tertiary. Like, it's not a big thing. So if you love this hobby and you want to treat it like a business, follow this advice. If you don't want to treat it like a business, then stop pretending you're investing and just make it a hobby. Thanks, everyone.